podcast you're about to listen to is from a book series on postqualitative, new materialist, and critical posthumanist research. You can find it on the following website, www.postqualitativeresearch.com.
Hello, I'm Candace Kuby. I'm excited to be a part of the book Navigating the Postqualitative, New Materialist, and Critical Posthumanist Terrain Across Disciplines, an Introductory Guide. My chapter in this book is titled, What Paradigmatic Perspectives Make Possible? Considerations for Pedagogies and the Doing of Inquiry. This chapter came to be as a place for me to think and share of experiences I've had teaching various qualitative research courses with graduate students. The notion of paradigm comes up a lot, and students seem to have confusion, uncertainty, and misunderstandings around paradigms. More than these feelings, which I'd see as expected in the learning of paradigms, are comments that my students share about previous instructors and experiences in other courses learning about paradigms. Students share that they've been told to choose a paradigm and stick with it, as if paradigms are boxes we choose to work within, as if paradigms are fixed entities that one must choose so early in their scholarly journeys to align with or pledge an allegiance. As an invitation into this chapter, I'd invite you to sit with the transcripts. These are excerpts of conversations that I've had with students about paradigms. These conversations are woven throughout the chapter as interludes. As an instructor, sit with what students are saying they understand and experience about paradigms, and how these conversations might change and shape your own pedagogies. As students, I hope you find their words comforting and a place of solace if you find paradigms befuddling, confusing, and exhausting to think about. I am reminded of conversations with students and questions they have about paradigms. They ask, if you have to choose one and stick with it, can you align with more than one paradigm? And can you change paradigms for each research study you do? I find a section of a book by Maggie Saven-Baden and Claire Howell-Major helpful. They talk about different scholars' perspectives on these questions. They articulate 5 orientations. The first orientation they call is a purist orientation, where people believe you can only have one paradigm and that others are incommensurable. The second orientation is a situationalist. This believes that there are different philosophies that can be applied to different situation and context for a scholar. The third is a congruence with theory orientation, that theory should guide methodological decisions. The fourth, a blended philosophies orientation, that different ontologies, epistemologies, and methodological considerations are taken into account and can be mixed and matched. And the fifth one is an aparadigmatic orientation, or people who believe that applying philosophy to research is impractical. Now, whether or not I personally believe or align with any or all of these orientations, I do hear them operating in the academy. And I recognize that my students might align with these different orientations and have different perspectives than my own. Hence, there isn't one way to think of paradigms, nor any rule that says you have to choose one and stay in that box. Thus, I hope my chapter in the book is a playground, an experimentation, and an invitation to think paradigms as otherwise. In the chapter, I also share pedagogical engagements that I've invited my students to do in courses, as well as a few readings and scholars whose publications are provocative and useful for students who are learning about paradigms, writings from Thomas Kuhn, Patty Lather, and Elizabeth St. Pierre. I share ways my students and I have worked with readings, paradigm charts, which appear as neat, tidy little boxes in qualitative research books and articles, clay, clean trash, newspapers, paint, artistic face masks, and many other material bodies as we think with paradigms. Much of this chapter builds on other publications, many with my colleague Becky Christ, where we've explored paradigms and the teaching of them. We have a piece in the journal Qualitative Inquiry about paradigming, thinking of paradigms not solely as things or nouns, but also as doings or verbs. This positions paradigms in a lively world where relationships are constantly coming into being, even relationships to and with paradigms. The chapter is written with many questions and invitations for readers to consider, and artful ways you might think with and engage with paradigms. I end the chapter with several quotes from Thomas Kuhn. quote, "A paradigm is rarely an object for replication," end quote. What an invitation for us all to think paradigms as not replicable, of changing and not fixed. He goes on to write, quote, "Some men have undoubtedly been driven to desert science because of their inability to tolerate crises. Like artists, creative scientists must occasionally be able to live in a world out of joint. Elsewhere, I have described that necessity as the essential tension implicit in scientific research," end quote. We must, like artists, be creative scientists, living in a world out of joint with essential tensions, or intentionality and tensions together. This is the place where newness, or perhaps productive differences or multiplicities, come to life. So I'd invite you to work with, think with, and make with my chapter and paradigms, and to lean into living and to inquiring in a world out of joint.
Thank you for listening to this podcast. If you would like to know more about this chapter, please visit the website www.postqualitativeresearch.com, and please stay tuned for future podcasts.